today's video is an exciting one. I've got big news. I've got the Hasselblad X2D to show you, and how does it compare to Leica SL series cameras. Am I going to have to buy a Hasselblad? Let's get into the video and I'll tell you why I like the camera, and stay with me to the end and I'll tell you whether or not I'm going to upgrade and anything I don't like about the Hasselblad too. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So when I was teaching in Spain a few weeks ago, Hide, my student, kindly lent me his extremely nice Hasselblad X2D. This is a 100 megapixel medium format mirrorless camera, and it's the first time I've had time to play with all the modern Hasselblad cameras, although I have shot with digital Hasselblad cameras in the past, and I used to own the Hasselblad H3D 31, which was one of the early ones before they got onto the H6. So first impressions, as someone that uses Leica cameras, I was really impressed. Normally I find when I shoot with non-Leica brands, they all seem a bit not quite as good. Once you've owned Leica cameras, it's quite difficult to find other cameras which have got the same kind of premium build quality. They're just nice to use, call it what you want. But Hasselblad actually feel, I would say, at least as good as Leica, potentially even a little bit nicer, dare I say it. Very, very nice camera. I love the ergonomics, I love the grip, I love the overall look of the camera. I think it's a very, very stylish looking camera. It feels very solid and beautifully made, the same as like SL mirrorless cameras that I use. But what about the finer details? So for those of you that don't know much about the Hasselblad cameras and how they compare to Leica cameras, let's just quickly run through a few obvious differences between the two systems. So Hasselblad are medium format digital cameras, Leica are full frame digital cameras. Hasselblad X2D is a 100 megapixel sensor, and then depending on which Leica you get, you can either have the 24 megapixel SL or SL2S, or the 47 megapixel like SL2. Hasselblad has the tilt screen, although personally I don't think there was any point having a screen that only opened up this much. I'm sure some of you might enjoy it, and I can see the reasoning going back to the heritage of having waist level viewfinders on the old Hasselblad 500 V series cameras. But if you're going to make a flip screen, at least make it move more than a teeny bit. And obviously if you've not used Leicas before, Leicas have fixed screens only. On the screen point, the Hasselblad has a 3.6 inch very, very nice high resolution screen. The SL has a 3 inch, and the SL2S has a 3.2 inch. So first impressions, as soon as you look at the camera, you're like, wow, that screen on the Hasselblad X2D is like really, really nice. So yeah, hats off to the Hasselblad guys for the beautiful screen, but I wasn't bothered with the tilt bit. What about the viewfinders? If you know anything about me and Leica SL cameras, you know I absolutely love the viewfinder. Leica SL viewfinder is a 0.8 magnification and 4,400 megapixels, although the newer ones are 0.78 and 5,600 megapixel resolution. The Hasselblad is the same resolution as the SL2S and SL2, but it's got a 0.87 magnification, so basically it's bigger, brighter, and the same resolution as the best Leica cameras. If you love image stabilization, the Leica SL2S has 5.5 stops of image stabilization, whereas the Hasselblad has 7 stops of image stabilization. So again, take another win to the Hasselblad. In terms of dynamic range, Hasselblad 15 stops of dynamic range, Leica 12 stops of dynamic range. And what about color depth? Hasselblad 16-bit color depth, Leica 14-bit color depth. And this is, I think, why as soon as you look at Hasselblad X2D colours, the first thing you notice is probably 1, the big screen, maybe 2, the beautiful build quality, and then 3 is the colours. You really notice the colours. As soon as you look at the pictures, you're like, wow, they're really quite nice. And this is from a guy that shoots mostly black and white. I will come on to black and white later, so stay with me. Talking of the images, the Hasselblad gives you a 4:3 ratio, whereas the Leicas give you a standard 3:2 ratio. I thought I liked the 3:2 ratio, but when I started to shoot with 4:3, I actually really liked it. Obviously slightly wider, and yeah, very easy to compose both models and landscapes. In terms of taking photos and card storage, like SL series cameras have 2 SD card slots, which is kind of the go-to for most cameras. The Hasselblad X2D has got the CF Express B series cards. I think it was a B series card. These are like solid state cards, and I love the fact that they feel much more robust. I've broken many SD cards in the past, and it killed my CL. Maybe I'll have to do a video on that. It cost me a lot of money. So that's the problem with SD cards. The advantage of SD cards is obviously they're more affordable. What about internal storage? Now the Hasselblad gives you a 1 terabyte internal storage, where Leicas give you 0. So I think that's quite nice, especially when you're shooting 100 megabyte file size images. I had to order myself a 5 terabyte hard drive just so I could download the photos from the card to my computer, because my computer was already full and the files are so huge. It didn't matter how many things I tried to delete, there just wasn't enough space on my computer to be able to view the photos. So yeah, more than I need for my portraits. Now, as someone that shoots a lot of film, sometimes I think my brain is back in the dark ages, and I forget some of the mod cons that are available with modern cameras. So what happened was I had the X2D with me overnight when I was in Spain, and I flattened the battery, and I was like, oh no, I can't take any more pictures now. And so I spoke to Hide and said, can you bring a spare battery when you come to the workshop today? Because we did like a 2-day workshop. And he's like, oh no, just plug in the USB-C cable, and you can both A, download the photos straight to your laptop, and 2, you can charge the camera at the same time. And I'm like, how did I not know this? So the Leica SL doesn't have USB-C charging capabilities, being an older camera, which is the camera that I use. But if you use the SL2 or SL2S, that has the same charging capabilities, USB-C, as the Hasselblad. Now, if you've seen any of my lighting videos, you will know that I love lighting for portraits. And I used to shoot mostly strobes, and currently I'm using mostly continuous LED lighting. Now the reason I say this is because I would probably be using more strobes if I owned the Hasselblad X2D, because it's got a maximum flash sync speed of 0.002 of a second. And that's just like so exciting for someone that likes playing with lights. I'm used to 250th maximum flash sync speed on the Leica SL series cameras, although the Leica Q will go faster. If you want to use extremely fast lenses on your camera, then the Hasselblad only gives you a maximum flash sync speed of 0.002 of a second, which is mechanical shutter, where the mechanical shutter maximum flash sync speed on the SL cameras is 0.008 of a second. So what happened is, during the shoot we were using an 80mm 1.9 lens, and that lens was maxing out, so we're having to use an ND filter in sunny conditions. So be aware, if you're going to buy a Hasselblad, you will need to use a ND filter on your fast lenses. My SL and those cameras, I can use a Noctilux 50 f1.0 lens, and we never have to use ND filters again, because the shutter speed's so fast. It actually goes up to 0.016 of a second on the SL electronic shutter. I think it's 0.004 of a second electronic shutter on the Hasselblad. If you've ever used an SL series camera, it's got a really nice battery design where you have to press twice to let the battery drop out, and it's really nice to see the same on the Hasselblad. Pretty much the same design. I'm not sure who patented it, but it seemed to be used by both cameras. Slightly different battery design, but the mechanics behind putting the battery in is the same on both bodies, pretty much identical. So those are most of the positives. As I say, I think I prefer the grip of the Hasselblad. I think maybe I prefer the look of the Hasselblad. No haters, please. I do love Leica still, but I just quite liked it. I like the orange button, and I liked how it looked. In terms of weights, they're very similar, but it's not all good news and roses and whatever they say. So what are the advantages of the Leica, and what are the drawbacks and problems that you get with the Hasselblad X2D? If you know anything about the Hasselblad X2D, you'll know that the autofocus is absolutely rubbish in terms of very slow. It's around 3 frames per second compared to 25 frames per second with the SL2S. So for any of you that love shooting with autofocus, this may be a deal breaker. As you know, I shoot manual focus most of the time, although I was shooting with autofocus when I was using the Hasselblad. Because I shoot single shot, I had 0 problems with the autofocus. But as I say, if you shoot autofocus like most people do, and you're like machine gunning or shooting fast, the Hasselblad's not going to tick your box. The biggest observation for myself is when I shoot any camera, I have the camera set to black and white JPEG mode, so that when I look to the viewfinder I see black and white. This makes it very easy for me to pre-visualize my final shot, which being black and white. I just shoot raw, then add a black and white Mr. Leica preset. With the Hasselblad, there's no such option. The only option is to just see like what you see. So that was a big like cross against Hasselblad, because I like to be able to preview in black and white. The second thing, which was a surprise, was that this is probably dumb user error, so feel free to comment below, but when I looked through the viewfinder of the Leica, I exposed by eye. I know this is not very technical, but it's always worked for me and I've had no issues. I exposed by eye by how bright it looks in the viewfinder, and I take my photo. With the Hasselblad, I did exactly the same process as if I was using the Leica, but every photo was overexposed by potentially one stop. So again, it might be user error, but I didn't like the fact that the camera was showing me something slightly different to the image that I was going to receive. I prefer to see what I'm going to get. Surely that's the whole point of mirrorless. Another feature that I didn't like about the Hasselblad is it didn't have a joystick to move the focus point. So on the back of the SL cameras, you've got a little joystick. So I kind of zoom in 100%, move my joystick if needed. Sometimes I'll just focus recompose, but it's nice to have the option to quickly move the joystick. On the Hasselblad, there's like how you're supposed to move it, and Hide kind of showed me a hack. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, the X2D, you can put your thumb on the LCD and move the cursor with your thumb on the LCD while looking through the viewfinder. It sounds a bit of a faff, and I did prefer the joystick, but that is a way to get around it. So you can move the cursor while shooting in single point focus mode, which is how I shoot. 2 more points against the Hasselblad. Number 1, as I understand it, there's no option for continuous autofocus. Let me know below if that's incorrect, but that's as I understand it. That wasn't a problem for me because I shoot AFS mode, so I pulse the shutter on, say, the cursor on the model's eye and then take the photo. Point number 1. Point number 2, I use the flashing zebra for overexposed highlights on the Leica cameras. I couldn't find that feature on the Hasselblad. Again, it might be dumb user not finding the feature, but I couldn't find it. And so a combination of not having flashing highlights and the camera overexposing difference to what I was seeing through the viewfinder was causing a tiny bit of frustration, because I expected what I see is what I get in my head. So what about some example photos? So here are some example photos, and yeah, see what you think. Actually, before I mention the photos, I just want to give another mention about the screen. Big, bright, beautiful screen, but this also works really well when it comes to the menu setting. Now, Leicas have very simple, easy to follow menus, but so do the Hasselblad. And the Hasselblad one is arguably bigger and more beautiful in terms of the menu than the Leica menus that I'm used to. So it's so nice to see a company, in addition to Leica, that actually make a camera with decent menus. Okay, onto the pictures. So luckily one morning when I was staying in Spain, there was quite heavy mist when I woke up. So I grabbed, and it was the day that I had the Hasselblad, so I grabbed the Hasselblad and the Leica and headed out the door, and these are the photos that followed. So these are all shot in RAW, 0 editing, and it was just getting like the sun. As you can see, the sun's just come up, and I love the filmic effect. I think a combination of the Hasselblad sensor and the fog and the mist, and it gave a real nice quality to the images. This is now edited with a preset. This is now edited with a black and white preset. And then I will make my Hasselblad presets, which I developed to edit these pictures below. So contact me if you want Hasselblad presets for your camera in black and white and in colour. These are during the workshop. The model was feeling quite brave, although it was quite windy. And then these are the same in colour. So these are edited again with a colour preset. And I was testing the lens, shooting it towards the sun and towards the tree to try to see what the bokeh was like from the 80mm 1.9 lens. These are now shot on the cliff top with Hide's wife, and she was a great sport. A triangle of our crazy ideas, or my crazy ideas. And this photo really shows the amazing image quality from a 100 megapixel sensor. Look at that detail from a 300% crop. A really fun couple of days in the sunshine. So those were the pictures. Number 1, can you tell a difference in the colours between Leica colours that I normally shoot with and Hasselblad colours in this video? All raw as mentioned, so let me know below if you can see any difference. Point number 2, am I going to get a Hasselblad? And the answer is as much as I love it, I'm happy with my Leica camera, and it's too many megapixels, number one. Number two, it's obviously very expensive, around $8,200 for the Hasselblad, or an SL2S Leica for $5,200. But I must say a huge thanks to my awesome patron Hide, who joined me for the workshop and lent me his beautiful camera. The lens design was beautiful, especially on the 55mm. It's got a really nice clutch design, well, like a pull push, a little bit like the Leica Q cameras, where you have a clutch for the macro setting. So all in all, beautiful camera. Those are my thoughts. So for now, I'm sticking with Leica, and as you know, despite me selling a few Leica lenses, I'm still mostly Leica in all systems. So film, Leica 3 cameras, Leica M cameras, Leica R cameras, CL, M cameras, Q and SL. So I'm all in on Leica, so I'll keep my blog name for a little bit longer. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button, and more videos coming soon.